Hello everyone, Cindy here with Monarch Mom DIY. Thank you so much for joining me today on my channel where I love to bring you my best tips and tools to inspire you to create beautiful home decor on a budget. Today's video is a little different, as you may have noticed from the thumbnail. Sometimes I like to throw some paper crafting, some bookmaking videos into my lineup, and today is one of those days. This is the first of a series. I'm not sure how many there will be, but I am showing you today how to make this easy, no-sew junk journal out of a little golden book. Don't worry, the entire book is in here. We've just added some extra fun stuff. So with all that being said, let's get bookmaking. The first thing we're going to need to do to our golden book is to get the front and back covers off and to remove the two signatures of pages inside. Now these golden books are usually held together by two large staples. If you go in from the back, you can work those staples to be straight and then remove the pages off of the staples. And if you're lucky, you'll get it all off in one piece like this. You could remove the staples and keep that golden spine if you'd like, but I'm going to make a larger spine on my book. I know I'm showing you on the Cinderella book because I'd already done this to the Snow White book, but then I'm just taking my scissors and trimming the front and back covers off. They don't have to be perfect because we're going to be covering those up anyway. Now, this book happened to have an ad in the back, but then the pages are in two sections. So I am doing 3 signatures. If you're just going to do 2, you could keep your pages as they are when you take them out of the book. But before we do the inside pages, now we're going to make our spine. I'm just measuring on this piece of light to medium weight chipboard how tall my cover is. I am going to trim down this piece of chipboard to the height of my front and back cover, and then I'm going to cut it at 1.5 inches. I like to do about 1/2 inch of spine for each signature. So since we're going to have 3 signatures, I'm doing 1.5 inches here. Now you're going to want wax paper for this step because it is messy. I am using a 10 by 10 square of fabric that I bought online, a whole package of them. I'm going to first fray an edge, and then you're going to see me, I'm going to cut a piece that's 2.5 inches here, but then when I put my spine piece on, I'm going to realize that's not going to be enough excess on the 2 sides. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces at 3 inches. That is a good width. I do need 2. Because this fabric is not very long, I'm going to need 2 pieces to cover the outside and the inside of our spine. So getting my piece nice and flat and straight, I am going to get my front and back covers ready, but the first thing I'm going to do is put Mod Podge all over this piece of chipboard, just using a foam brush here. Once I have that covered, pretty saturated, I'm going to place it down in the center of my fabric, just eyeballing it, trying to get it as centered as possible, and then press that down really well. Then turning over my front cover, I'm going to put some Mod Podge on the edge there. It's okay if you get too much because you can wipe off the excess later. And I'm going to place this down right next to my spine, but I'm leaving a gap between 1/8 and 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch is probably too much, but you want enough that you're going to be able to open and close your book cover. Then we're going to do the same thing on the back cover. Once we have that front and back cover glued down as well, I'm just going to take my second piece of fabric and see how much I'm going to need to cover up that spine on the inside. Then we're going to put Mod Podge over the spine and a little bit onto the front and back covers. Spread that out again with our sponge brush. And this part, like I said, is messy, so please make sure you have something down protecting your workspace. Then I'm going to pull the top and bottom of that front piece of fabric, press it down into the Mod Podge, put a little bit more on top to cover it. Then I'm going to line up the smaller piece so that it matches as much as possible. And then we're going to put Mod Podge over this whole thing. Now we're going to spread this out and we are going to make sure that everything is secure. It's okay if you get it onto the covers. Even if you're not wanting to cover up the inside of the little golden books, you'll be able to wipe off the excess. And I just like to get in there with my fingers, make sure everything's pressed down, especially into those little spaces where we kept a space between the spine and the cover. Now, before you let this dry, go ahead and peel it off. Put down a fresh piece of wax paper. We're going to let that dry for about 30 minutes. Then we're going to flip it over to the front and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put that extra layer of Mod Podge just to make sure our book is nice and sturdy. Now on the front here, you may want to wipe down if you get a little bit onto the actual picture parts of the cover, but smooth that out. Use a baby wipe or paper towel to get off any excess. This time we're going to let it dry for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now you can see it is still wet with the Mod Podge. You can still see the Mod Podge that does dry clear. But what I'm doing here is if you want a rounded spine, you're going to work this after about 10 to 15 minutes of the Mod Podge being on there. You can see I'm kind of laying it flat, but pinching the spine so that it curves up. This is optional. You can leave your spine straight if you'd like. Once you have it how you like it, you're going to want to let that sit and dry overnight till it's completely hardened. Now we're going to work on our pages. So I had trimmed out my pages. There's 12 pages. I'm putting them in 3 piles of 4. And then of my back pages of 4, this is the first and last. So I am going to reattach these with some washi tape. I'm just going to eyeball it, take it right down the center, trim the excess, and then flip it over and do the same thing. As I mentioned before, if you want to make this easier, just do 2 signatures. That's just groups of pages in your book, and leave the pages how they were when you took them out of the golden book. I am, like I said, I'm making this into 3 signatures, so I needed to reattach different pages to each other. I hope that makes sense. If you follow the story, you'll see that doing this is going to still make my story pages continuous throughout the book. Now these are the other 2 that were with that signature. You can see I'm making sure that they continue the story correctly, and I'm going to washi tape these together as well. So with 12 pages, I'm going to have 6 pairs of pages, 2 pairs of pages in each of my 3 signatures. So here are all of our pages in our storybook for each of our signatures, and I'm just flipping through, making sure that they're telling the story in the correct order, just double checking my math here, and they all look good. And the last page is they lived happily ever after. Now, here's the fun part. I have my 3 signatures up there at the top. This is where you can be very creative, add all sorts of things. I've got a book magazine about birds. I've got cardstock. This is from an Etsy listing. It is a printable set for a junk journal. It's called Mirror Mirror, and I will put the link for this in the description box. I printed mine once I purchased the set. I printed them 2-sided so that when I put them in my journal, both sides of my pages will be decorative. So I'm going to add a couple of these different ones to each of my signatures as well. I love adding all different types of papers. This is from like a primary writing practice tablet. You can find at Hobby Lobby, Amazon, sometimes at Dollar Tree. I'm going to put a sheet of that into each of my signatures. I've got a grid notepad that I'm going to use. And of course, you do not have to do all these different papers if you don't want. If you want it to be just lined paper, you can do that. If you want it to be blank white copy paper, you could do that as well. This is just more of a junk journal style that has all different papers. This is some printer paper that I actually coffee dyed with instant coffee. I spritzed it on and then let it air dry. I like that look. And I will say spritzing the coffee water onto the paper is a lot less messy than soaking it. Now this was an old hymnal I found at a thrift store. It was literally falling apart, but once I snipped the stitches from the middle, I was able to have two pieces that were connected still in the middle, which is perfect for junk journals. This similar idea was a composition notebook that was sewn together. So cutting them the strings out and then taking the pages out of the middle, I was able to keep two pages together, which again is perfect for a junk journal. So now that we have all of our pages, I'm going to show you one more thing I found at Dollar Tree. It was this Snow White, obviously not Disney, but it's a Snow White color by number. So I'm going to put one page of that into one of my signatures here as well. Now I'm just remeasuring all my papers here. My cover is about 8 inches tall. So anything that is more than 8 inches, I'm going to trim that down. You don't have to have everything exactly at 8 inches. You're going to see here, I'm going to trim like some of my cardstock a little bit shorter, some of the writing papers, just to give it a little bit more fun and interest and layering. Here I'm going to show you another thing that I'm going to add into each of my signatures. I'm taking a 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock. Once I cut that branding strip off, I'm going to fold it in half. So now we are folded at 6 inches exactly in half. And go ahead and use a bone folder to crease that down. Opening it back up, I'm going to fold the bottom up to create a pocket. And I'm just holding it against the cover there to see where I need to fold it up to so that it is the height of the cover or shorter. Okay, you don't want it longer because then it's going to stick out. I guess you could trim the top if you ended up folding it and making it too long. But here we're just going to fold it, the pocket up, and then crease it again. So one of these is going in each of our signatures. All right, here's my first signature. I'm going to always start with a set of the book pages, and then I'm just going to layer my pieces together. I'm not worried if they're sticking out further. We're going to trim that up in a minute, but I'm trying to do different colors. So there's our cardstock pockets, throw our Bird magazine page in there, our coffee stained paper, one of our printable sheets from the Etsy listing. Let's get a writing paper in there. And we're just going to layer everything inside of each other, like we're just making the signature of the book. Let's get the rest of our pages, our storybook pages in there for our first signature. And then we'll do the grid paper, and we're going to end with one of the printable pages. So that's going to be my first signature. I'm going to do that same process with my second and third signatures as well. If you're stopping by my channel for the first time today, welcome. I'm so glad that you found me. I really hope you enjoy what you're seeing and you'll consider sticking around by hitting that subscribe button. I do have over 700 videos here now on YouTube, so there is plenty for you to watch and enjoy, and hopefully you'll be inspired to do some creating of your own. All right, it is now the next day for our cover, and you can see that fabric is nice and hard for the spine of our book. I'm just rechecking, remeasuring. It looks like each of our front and back covers are about 6 inches wide by about 8 inches tall. Now, this step is optional. Some people prefer to keep the inside of the little golden book showing what's naturally there. I decided I wanted to take this really cute floral paper that I thought fit the colors of the cover of the book. I'm cutting them at 8 inches by just a little bit less than 6 inches since we do have that fabric there. And then I am going to attach these to the inside of both the front and back cover. I am going to use my fabric tack glue. You could use art glitter glue. You're just going to want something strong and try to go all the way to the edges so that this will stay attached and you don't have to worry about it coming off. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of decoration. I'm using this wide rickrack from Michaels. I thought the yellow was really pretty with the red for Snow White. And I did cut a piece long enough to do the outside and the inside of the cover. So running a bead of this fabric tack, this is a recommended if you're gluing fabric to fabric, which I'm doing. So I'm trying to do the middle of the rickrack here on the front cover, and you are going to want to let that sit for a minute once you get that into place. So we'll do one on the front cover and one on the back, just kind of right covering up where the edge of the fabric is. Once that's dried enough on the front, you can flip over your cover now and take some more glue. You're going to bring that rickrack around to the inside of your cover. And obviously I have a little too much here, so go ahead and trim it where you need to. You're most likely not even really going to see this except maybe if you look for it at the beginning and the end of your book, but it is a nice little decorative touch. I did put a little bit of extra fabric tack where the end was, just so that it would stay stuck down to the other piece of rickrack. So we're going to wrap that decorative rickrack from the outside onto the inside of our cover and then let that dry. Now I am choosing to punch a hole in the front and back cover to place an eyelet so that we can make a tie closure here. So using my Crocodile, I punched a hole right at the center, and then I'm going to set the eyelet using the little top part. It just kind of scrunches it so that if you see on the inside, it's not going to go anywhere. You could just punch a hole if you want, but I think the eyelet makes it look nice. You do not have to have a closure on your book. This is just an option that I'm showing you. So you punch the hole, you set the eyelet in the hole, and then with the Crocodile, scrunch down the eyelet so that it grabs onto that and is not going to move anywhere. Looks so nice. Okay, now we're going to make sure our signatures are the right width. You can see especially that writing paper there is sticking out quite a bit. So I'm just going to trim these up, make sure they're all at about 6 inches. You can put the clip if you want. It might be easier to use like a binder clip. For my trimmer, it was kind of in the way, but I'm just going to line it up at the 6 inches, and then we're going to trim down anything that is sticking out past that. And we'll do that for all 3 of our signatures. Okay, we are now ready to bind our signatures into our book. I am showing you these Brights file bands. These are basically large rubber bands. And as you're going to see here, I'm putting one for each of my signatures right onto the spine of my book. Now, this book is only 8 inches tall, so you probably could use regular rubber bands, but I wanted to show you these, especially if you were going to make a journal with a larger book. You're going to need these extra long rubber bands. So I tried to pick the orange color because I felt like it blended in best with the red fabric. Remember, this is just one of a few different ways I'm going to show you how to put these books together, but this is the easiest without having to sew. Now look, I'm taking my signature. This is my back signature, and I'm opening it to the middle and I'm sliding it onto the rubber band. This, if you're familiar with traveler's notebooks, this is what a traveler's notebook is. Okay, we're not sewing anything, we're not stapling anything, we're just sliding these under the bands. One advantage to this, besides that you don't have to sew or staple anything, is you can add more pages to this junk journal. You can rearrange your pages if you want to. So this might be a great option for a first journal, for a journal for a child that maybe is going to want to add some artwork they do at school. They might want to add it in there. So I'm just taking each of my signatures and sliding it under one of the bands. That's how easy it is. Now the bands do move around, so if that's going to bother you, you could glue those bands in place so that they don't move, or you can bind it in a different way, which I'm going to show you in a future video. Now, as I'm flipping through my journal for the first time, I am coming to those pockets we made out of the 12-inch by 12-inch cardstock. I am just choosing to staple them shut. You could glue them. You could use washi tape to tape them shut, kind of like we taped the pages together. Whatever you choose, but you're going to want to secure those open ends on the outside so that you can actually use them as pockets. Okay, now I'm going to start flipping through. I have a variety of items here, some more of the printables from the Etsy listing. This is a corner pocket from there. I just printed it onto regular copy paper so that I could easily fold the edges. I'm going to put glue on those 2 little flaps and glue them down into the corner of this cardstock page here. These decorations I'm showing you just to give you ideas. There's so many videos on how to make junk journals. I'm going to make a little tuck spot here by gluing this just on the left side and the bottom so that it's kind of a little spot, not quite a pocket, but similar to a pocket. We're going to add lots of fun things here. Use Rick Rack. I'm going to use another of the printable journal cards, but I'm going to cut it to add decorations. Now, the purpose of a junk journal is to leave lots of space to be able to create on, journal on, add photos, add memorabilia, whatever someone might want to do. So don't feel like you have to decorate every single page. I'm using what's left over of the cardstock I put on the front and back covers, cutting strips of it, and you'll see me put those every so often throughout the book. Another fun thing to use if you're wanting to get into junk journaling is repurposing these envelopes that come in the mail, whether it's one that was used or not. Sometimes they send them in for return mail. You can trim it so you can see that little window there. I just covered up the printing on the envelope with some washi tape, and I'm going to stick this piece of cardstock in there. I downloaded and printed some coloring pages off the internet. These were free Google Images, and I made them small so that I could fit all 7 of the dwarfs on one sheet of cardstock. I'm just cutting those out, kind of free cutting around them, and I'm going to stick those in this envelope as an extra fun activity for whoever gets this journal. So all 7 of the black and white images here of the dwarfs are going to go in this pocket. And then I'm going to use some sticker letters at the top. Once I secure this down, I'm going to use a tape runner here and also some glue stick to stick this down onto this page. And then, like I said, I'm going to use some sticker letters to make the title that says Color Me, so they know that this is an activity. They can reach in, color those dwarfs, and then add them wherever they would like to in their journal. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I am using washi tape on my pockets here to cover up the staples just for safety and just to make it look a little nicer. You can do this if you choose. You definitely do not have to. Washi tape is a really fun way to just add a little bit of color to some of your pages in your junk journal. Here's another one of the little pockets that was part of the printable set, and those are really easy to add on to your pages. I don't know about you, but I always seem to have these CD or DVD paper envelopes laying around. These are another fun thing you can add to your junk journals to make a little pocket with a window. And here's another page. We're going to add some washi tape to cover up the staples on our cardstock pockets here. Okay, let's come back to our cover. Remember, I put those eyelets in the front and back covers, and I'm going to take a piece of seam binding. You can use ribbon, whatever you'd like, and I am tying it this way so that the ribbon doesn't wrap around the book. I didn't want it to cover any of the image, but you could definitely do it where it wraps all the way around the book and then ties shut. I'm just doing it this way, and then I don't need quite as much of the ribbon, so I'm pulling it a little shorter. I want to make sure I have plenty that even when this journal gets nice and fat, full of all sorts of pictures and memorabilia and journaling, it'll still be able to tie closed. All right, so are you ready to see my finished journal? I hope so. I wish I could put music to this, but my app doesn't have that anymore. So again, there's a few things I added. Some journal cards here into the pockets, which also came with the Etsy listing. Lots of space, you'll notice, for journaling, for adding things in the pockets, for sticking some pictures down on the pages. Lots of pretty images. Again, you can put as much or as little of the pictures as you want. There's our next 2 pages for the story. There's our 7 dwarfs that are black and white for a little coloring activity, and then can be put wherever you want into the book. Middle of our first signature here, the storybook pages continue. Some writing paper, other goodies that you've already seen, and another pocket. More writing space, journaling, pictures, the next 2 pages for the storybook, and that is the first signature. I'm going to let you watch the flip through now of signatures 2 and 3. And that is the end of our journal. Again, you can see that these rubber bands are going to move around. I would suggest for a little golden book, maybe using some regular rubber bands that are the thicker ones. Those might stay in place a little bit better, but a future video is going to show you some other ways to bind your journals. I'm going to put that ribbon back through the top hole and tie that closed. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of this project, if you think you'll try one. Like I said, I will be coming back showing some different ways, especially that you can bind your junk journals. This was a no-sew method that you can use. I will also be showing a couple different ways that you can put these junk journals together. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Take care.